This is Mary-Elaine Robertson for the Shetland Times podcast, and today I'm joined by none other than Phill Jupitus.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. And we are here to set the scene for the listeners to the podcast of the Shetland Times. We're in the theatre where I'm playing in Shetland tonight, which is sold out, but it's empty. It's just you and me now.
Yeah, just two. So a lot of latecomers.
It's a bit like an early Fringe show for me. Just two people sat with a sense of foreboding.
Yes, but with a nicer smell in the air.
Certainly it is. It
Less
smells a lot.
sweaty.
Smells a lot fresher, and the facilities in this room are much better than most Fringe venues, we have to say.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you, Shetland Apps. I should have got you to do the introduction because that was, well, you are a professional.
Well, the thing is the situation we're in here is that this is one of those podcasts are very, very interesting because they're quite freeform. Do you not find?
Yes, actually I do. Yeah.
You're not going to edit this at all, are you? We just put it out.
If we don't have
is.
to, that's a lot less work for me, so I'd be really happy.
Indeed. Yeah. No, I know exactly what I'm not going to do on this podcast, so we don't have to edit.
You can say bad words, and then all I have to say is explicit on the name of the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. I'm enjoying this place too much. Why put them off me more?
I was going to ask you actually what your first impressions of coming to Shetland were today.
So I arrived this morning very early. It's the size of the plane that brings you over that fascinates me because it's one of those sort of Glenn Miller turboprop things. And I was thinking, you're thinking on a flight like that, if the plane did ditch into, depending on what side of the island you come from, North Sea or Atlantic, if the plane did ditch, how upset would people be? I always wonder about how my death would go down if it happened. But it'd be nice. I'd like to have one of those classic, I think an aircraft kind of ditching, although the missus was with me, so I wouldn't approve of that at all. But I was thinking about that, being on a small plane. And then when you come into land, you're over the water as you're coming into land, to a nervous extent of time.
So you look out the window at the last minute?
Oh, I always look out the window at the last minute. And the thing is, with those small planes, is because it's quite windy and exposed on Shetland and Orkney, they really have to put those planes down on the runway. So it's like someone dropping a wardrobe out of the first floor window. Mm-hmm. It's quite a heavy bump when you land.
Yeah, it is. But every time I go up in a flight, I'm like, this is unnatural. This is evil work.
You think so? Okay.
But I know what you mean as well. I often tell if anyone's scared of flying, I'm like, this encourages it by saying don't look out the window before you land because you just see water. Yeah,
but I quite like that it's you're on an island.
Yeah.
And my favourite bit about the journey coming here was the fact that your runway of your airport has a level crossing. So that if there are planes coming in, cars drive across the runway, which I found delightful.
Yeah, the reason being there's nowhere flat enough that's large enough to host a runway in Shetland. So
yeah.
It's not because we're just terrible at planning roads.
No, not at all, not at all. I can see that these things, they happen for a reason, but I was just made me astonishingly jealous of anyone that's ever been. If you have ever had to stop at the red light for a plane, I'm so jealous.
I actually used to work at the lighthouse at the cliffs there.
Yeah.
And I would often use a plane was landing as an excuse for being late.
Excellent.
It was good. It was really handy. So had you had any preconceived ideas of what Shetland may be like so far? Because you've not done your show yet. You've just arrived.
Yeah.
Pre-show.
No, I was born on the Isle of Wight, so there is a certain island mindset, isn't there? Do you not find?
Yeah.
There's something about being separated from a majority population that gives you your own. You have your own rules. You have your own view of mainlanders, and so I grew up around that as a child, and so I'm very familiar. I think island folk from the UK, whether we're from the Isle of Man, Shetland, Orkney, the Isle of Wight, Jersey as well. I've been to Jersey, Guernsey, and I feel that vibe. I kind of slot into it quite well. Canvey Island, all of these islands, the Isle of Sheppey, Eel Pie Island. There are many, many islands in our fine nation, and I had that feeling that I kind of dig it. I can see where it's at.
Yeah. It is really funny as well because often when they tell folk like yourself who've been on television who come to Shetland, I don't know if they told you this, but they have said to people in the past, like, don't be too you're not being harassed if everybody says hi to you, because everyone says hi to everybody anyway. And they may see you, be like, I recognise him, I must know him. That might be my cousin. Hi. Because out of context, if somebody didn't know Phill Jupitus was in Shetland, they would see you and be like, oh, I know that man.
No, well, I was so there's a lovely restaurant here near the theatre, and I went
Is that
for
the museum one?
The museum one is very lovely.
few.
Yeah, is it the museum one? Was I upstairs in the museum? I was upstairs in the museum.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It was really good. So I was there, and I was having a spot to eat, and I came out, and I'd met a mate who was on their way to the ferry, and I came out, and there's a wedding party were arriving, and they got quite giddy that they'd spotted me. And so there's a lot of men in kilts pointing at me, which I haven't had happen in a long while. So it's that's the odd thing. I always, when people say, oh, what's it like having your level of sort of being, I hate to use the word fame, but being recognisable, being a face that people recognise, they go, what is that like? And I go, and I say it's like living up north. It's just like living up north, where people just say hello to each other.
Yeah.
Just down south and around London and Essex, where I live, people don't say hello. They just pass each other in the street in a state of sullen kind of resentment. There's no hate. They're too busy to talk. That's what it is. Stuff to do.
That's what I've been to London, and it was too big for me.
I can imagine that, but that sense of space, and firstly the air, what you're breathing must feel appreciably different, because I am borderline hallucinating on this island with the amount of salt and ozone and oxygen I'm getting into my system that I've not had before. I feel that at any given moment I might just spontaneously combust. There's so much kind of richness going into my body. So yeah.
They say about Shetlanders, you've satted the blood, which means salt in your blood.
Yeah.
And it's great because it means that we can ingest all the time, and there's never any negative consequences.
So if you were in a lifeboat, you could you drink the seawater?
I've drunk it before.
What were you thinking?
My brother told me to. So
does your brother listen to the podcast?
Dirk? Sometimes.
What were you thinking, Dirk? Mate, really? Kind of a brother are you?
A bigger brother.
I'm a bigger brother, and I've never made my sister drink seawater.
But did you live by the sea? Oh, yes,
we did. Yes, we did. I was born on the Isle of Wight and then moved to Essex, but I'm near the Thames. I'm Leigh-on-Sea.
Okay.
I'm by the sea now, yeah. The sea. It's a river estuary. That's not near the sea. It's an estuary. Lots of mud.
Nice.
Silty water. It's the weird thing that I can't get my hand around is see-through water. You've got see-through seawater. The water where I am on the coast in Essex is like it's like a hot chocolate.
Oh, weird.
It's that kind of.
It's like Willy Wonka. Good.
It is. It's like the chocolate.
Water. Yeah.
It is. It's like the chocolate river in Willy Wonka. Yeah.
Also, just note, this is really interesting for the podcast listeners. Phill, please look out your window of your dressing room, because as you say, the water's really clear, and there's this seal that just hangs around Mariel the entire time. This big, he's really, really big because the men throw fish to him from the fish factory. So he's never had to catch a fish for himself in years, and he just loves looking up through the windows of Mariel.
There's an out of condition wheezy seal outside.
Yeah, and
he
doesn't even swim. He just kind of pokes his head up straight up like that, not even looking, and every now and then he just sinks, blowing bubbles as he goes. Sorry, great podcast, but I just want you to see him. He's great.
You see, because today I went on a fruitless search up at Sunborough for puffins.
Oh, was there none?
Well, what happened was as you, I'm talking about the weather on a podcast in Shetland. That's going to sell. One of those. The cloud came in. The low cloud came in. So that was it. We were done. That was it.
Sometimes they like that because there's less chance of bonxies, what we call great skewers, coming to attack them.
Really?
So they're more likely to platch your boots in the daylight when there's cloud.
Good grief.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one.
But they might be feeding.
I saw one, and it came out of its puffin hole, relieved itself, and then went back into its puffin hole. I mean, so I saw one. But I like Sunborough itself was rather lovely. And then I went to Yarltoff and had a look. That blew my tiny mind. That That's proper what I came here for. That.
For anyone listening, Jarlshof is this brilliant site that was completely unknown about until there's a great storm.
1899? The storm?
I believe
1890?
so.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that, you know better, yeah.
A storm that completely scoured the topsoil off of this, what is, I mean, I want to say Neolithic, but I think Neolithic's too early. It's soup to nuts.
I think there's one...
Iron Age? There's a really... so there's 2000 BC. There's a 2000 BC. Then there's like a sort of 1500, 1000 BC. And then the Vikings kick in after C. And then it gets medieval. And then the Laird built his 2 up, 2
And then
down.
we tore it down again.
What is that all about?
Those Lairds. Yeah, because I think there is a midden there. A spoil heap, which might be actually Neolithic.
Right,
I can't remember. I sometimes...
Is that the moundy thing just outside?
Yeah, I
right,
sometimes
cool.
just run around it and don't read
No,
anything.
you have to understand that this is a two-way street, this podcast. I am learning from you.
Okay, well, I should know. You know what? I studied archaeology for 4 years.
Get in. And yet you don't know when the big storm was that exposed this delightful treat for the islanders.
No, it's how Shetland... You know when you come from somewhere that you sometimes forget?
Is it pronounced broach or broch?
Broch.
Broch. Broch.
Yeah.
It's like a stone wigwam, isn't it?
It's amazing.
I like it. Also, it's like double-lined because it's got those... I tell you what, it's like a people beehive.
Oh yeah, that's very much what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because you know you can walk up between the 2 walls.
Shut up.
So the one in Musa, there's one broch, which is the best preserved broch in the world, and you can actually walk up the staircase and go to the top of it. Because the staircase goes up between...
Where is it?
It's an island called Musa.
Yeah.
And it's on the way to the airport. If you ask whoever's driving you tomorrow to point you
I'm driving myself.
Oh, okay. Well, when you get to Sandwich, you look to the left and there's an island lying off to the sea, and you can see the broch quite clearly from the mainland.
What you sound to me now like is, this is a reference that you won't get, but maybe some of your older listeners will get it. You sound to me like the teacher in the Peanuts cartoons, because you're talking, but I can't understand a word of what you're saying. Wah, 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 wah. But you're saying all things that are real, but it's just like, I'm driving a car, I'm 55, and here's what I do while I'm driving a car when I'm 55. Ooh, clouds!
Yeah.
Ooh, sea! Ooh, pretty fields. I nearly crashed 4 times today just with the whole weird kind of... Oh, the ponies. Don't get me started on your... Let's put a shy horse in a photocopier and shrink it.
It is the poor vegetation over generations. They just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk.
Is that what it was?
That's
Bad
exactly
food?
What it is. Yep.
Shut up.
Yep.
The things you know. Oh my God, you're like Shetland Google.
I do like Shetland, but yeah, that's why we did that actually at university. We did a lecture on the evolution of animals and how in poor terrain they get smaller and smaller and sturdier and stumpier.
Sturdier. I prefer sturdier to smaller.
Yeah.
You've got some great sheep here. Some really miserable looking ones which have just been, I have to say, poorly sheared. But I imagine that it's pragmatic shearing rather than, they're not trying to get full fleeces off these things. Because they shear them in a way that there's corners left on them.
Oh, you've just seen a bad work. You've just seen, but come and see our sheep. We just sheared them and they are smooth and rounded.
No, the sheep that I saw today were like they look like dodecahedrons or a poorly completed Rubik's Cube.
Old clippers, the big shears.
Yeah?
That'll be what that might be, and that's why you get these angular
I don't know, I quite like, because they look like, do you remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air haircuts, the box haircut? Sheep basically look like Will Smith.
Yeah.
It's nice.
We're getting there with the fashion in Shetland. Just a bit behind.
It's all right. I thought a mid-80s hip-hop reference might fly on a Shetland podcast.
It will. Everyone loves Fresh Prince. Well, I hope everyone does. It's timeless.
Timeless.
I wanted to ask as well, actually, about the focus of your new show.
Yeah.
Putting the questions away. Is there a particular focus?
It's the thing evolved through a state of panic, because what happened was so let me flip a question at you. What's your writing process for material? How do you write?
Well, I I usually just think of funny anecdotes and I write them down.
Right, yeah.
And then what I do is I go back through it and then I try and turn it into beats.
So I think of funny things, okay, and then I record them on my phone, but just funny random thoughts.
Okay.
And I record them on my phone, and then I name them comedy idea. I just put comedy idea, and so I've got on my phone on vocal memos. It's just got a comedy idea written, loads and loads and loads of things that say comedy idea, and so then when I've been on tour in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes, I saw that.
Right. So I was. Where'd you see that?
Oh,
Did you come?
no, I saw on the news that you've been on tour of Chitty Chitty.
So different thing. So we. But the thing is, everyone knows how Chitty Chitty Bang Bang goes. So all you have to do in your head is go, imagine that Phill Jupitus is Gert Frobe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'd been in Chitty for a year, and so while I was doing the tour, right, every once in a while I was recording. I was going, whimsical idea, whimsical idea, whimsical idea. And then at the end of my tour, my phone wanted me to update its software, which of course I did. I updated my phone software, and why wouldn't you do that? Because if you do that, you erase all of the voice memos, and so I had 37 minutes of ideas that I completely erased.
Oh, that's horrible.
Just before a tour. So the tour came out of a kind of half-formed previous ideas. This particular show that I'm doing tonight, are you watching tonight? Are you seeing tonight?
Juplicity.
Excellent. So tonight what I'm talking about is my relationship with Scotland.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because it looks like I'm going to end up living here. So
Shetland.
I think I'm going to... Not Shetland, I wish I could say Shetland. But, might as well be Shetland as far as my family in Essex are concerned. It'll be north of Edinburgh. So I'm looking at Fife. I like Fife.
Nice, kingdom.
And that idea, it's a kingdom, yeah. I like that idea of just, and Scottish, just the vibe of the people, their energy, their humour, it just speaks to me. Sometimes you go somewhere and you feel it, you feel a vibe. And I get a vibe off the Scottish that I really dig. And it's, everywhere I've gone, there's been something that just... It speaks to me, the whole, right the way from soup to nuts, from the borders up to here, and even though Shetland is really, and I think maybe Shetland is like the Isle of Wight of Scotland, maybe that's why I feel it, something here, it's just talking to me, the place, the people, I dig it. So the show is a little bit about my relationship with Scotland, and it's also about that, I discussed the fact that I do talk about not my personal life, but like I talk about my kids, I talk about my family on stage, and I talk about my family on stage, and also about my the arc of my time as a father and as a son, and how my mother, being parented and being a parent, how that's changed me over life. So I like the fact that you can kind of talk about diverse things on stage. And so I went on stage. It's interesting. So I think when I go on stage, I don't have anything written down. I think, right, I'm going to talk about that, and then I'll definitely do that. And what I'll do is I'll talk about A and B for as long as I can, and then I'll go into C, which I know is meat material and I know I can rely on. Yeah. And so I went on stage the other night at Burnham and going, right, I'm going to do A and B, and then I'll see if I get to C. And A and B were 40 minutes. And so that's great. And so now I know that I can play with A and B. Yeah. So and I've done it the last few gigs. And every time I look at my watch, it's half an hour to 40 minutes. It's just this me sort of chatting about my relationship with Scotland. And so you that hear this podcast, you may have already seen the show. And I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, I like talking about things that genuinely mean something to me, because I can't write. I can't write material in the sense that I envy comics who can sit down with a sheet of paper and go, idea, joke, theme. I can't do that. I just need to find... The average gig will have... I talk about 3 or 4 things in one show. So it's 3 things that I'll talk about over the hour. I can't do. But imagine how tired Tim Vine must be after a gig.
Oh, I know. I was watching videos of his the other night and thinking
The skill involved in that.
Like, as well, Mark Simmons came to Shetland.
Yeah.
And he's just one-liner.
Yeah.
But he says they're all looped in circuits.
Yeah.
So they're grouped together. But just memorising fractured...
Yeah.
It seems completely fractured, but he's got this amazing art.
I can't imagine how someone will go about doing that.
Also,
it's just the nature of the thing, isn't it? So, yeah, I think playing in new places and coming to new theatres, meeting new audiences, you are meeting new people. Every gig has an individual vibe to it, has an individual kind of feeling. But, you know, that you feed off of. I think that is both my strength and weakness as a performer, and I think that is of any performer, is they've always good and bad points. Sadly, my good point and my bad point is the same thing, and I think there's a lot of comedians that have this as a benefit / weakness, which is that I'm very reliant on the audience going with me.
Yeah.
And if they don't go with me, it's like I get bored of myself. It's like I'm like, well, if you're, because I think all comedians have a fundamental frailty to them, and if an audience kind of isn't into it. I did a gig, the people of Guildford are lovely people, but when they go to be entertained, it's with a sense of reluctance. It's like that they're like, oh, really? Oh, jokes? And I'm like, you did buy a ticket for this. You did know this was going to be jokes, so why, when I tell a joke, are you going, duh? And it's like you've got to kind of let the joy out when you're an audience member, and I'm quite reliant on that. And I feel really weird. Touching the wood at your elbow, I feel really weird talking about it before a gig in the theatre where I'm doing it.
Sorry for making you do that.
I feel like I'm just massively tempting fate. But anyway, yeah. A final question, because I've got to eat before my show.
Well,
Nightmare.
I was worried because my final question is quite a broad one, but maybe you could just do it as a yes or a no in one.
No. I think we can strike a balance. I can give you like a speed, broad answer.
Because it's just, I just find what really is interesting about you as well is your whole background in poetry too.
Yeah.
And Porky the Poet.
Yeah.
And you've revived him in 2012 and 2013 at the
Well,
Fringe.
I've done him 4 times at the Fringe now. So it was. I think I might have first done 11. Might have been 11, 12. What was last year? Last year was 16. I didn't do last year because I was doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So 15, 14, 13, 12. Yeah.
So since there's like
Done it
first
4
came
times, yeah.
in the 80s,
Yeah.
then there's been quite a lot of them recently.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd merge the two even further? Because it's like there's two great loves of poetry and comedy and...
Well, you will see tonight.
Oh, I'm excited.
You will
'Cause I'd
see
love to
tonight.
see.
Yeah, you will see tonight. The poetry I can write, and I think the poetry feeds the comedy.
Cool.
And when I'm doing the poetry, I think of funny things. And that was what happened. Was I started as a poet, and then a mate of mine said to me, James Brown, who was one of the editors at the NME, he came to see me in Leeds, and after the gig we were getting drunk in his house on cider, and he said to me, you do realise that what you say between the poems has more substance and is funnier than the poems.
Is that what took you to stand-up comedy?
And that's what took me to stand-up.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
So the free associating I was doing between poems turned into a stand-up career.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's it. You see, I didn't have to give you the yes/no because I gave you the speed broad answer.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on it's the Shetland Times podcast. Am I correct?
Yes.
How about that? I remembered.
Brilliant.
That's a key thing. And all you podcast listeners out there, keep listening. Next week, our guest will be the ghost of the man who built the Jarlshof.
Yeah, you heard it here.
Jarlshof, the ghost of the guy that built the Iron Age bit.
Yeah, not too keen on the Laertes bit, although those will be the...
There's going to be a lot of material about smelting. I do apologise in advance.
Well, that's good.
Do they like smelting in the podcast?
They're going to have to. Like, enjoy it, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they will. But thank you very much for speaking to us.
Yeah, this is less a podcast. The Shetland Times podcast, a hostage situation.